Hi, John Haver here, and this is how to analyze backlinks before purchasing a website. And this is part 2, looking at the link metrics, and in particular the citation versus trust flow link metrics on the link metrics graph that Majestic SEO has, which is one of my favorite features of Majestic SEO because it can very quickly show the quality of a site's backlinks. So this is part 2, and we'll get right into it here, looking at some examples. So first example is if there's a large difference between the citation flow and the trust flow, then that's a pretty clear indicator. So this, in part 2, we're kind of looking at everything that's up here. The trust flow, citation flow, based on the different domains that we're looking at, and then in particular this trust versus citation flow graph. So we'll look at the first site here, and what we're looking to see is the large difference here between citation and trust flow. Whenever you see a gap, especially with a low trust flow and a high citation flow, it's a clear indication that the site has been spammed. So tons of backlinks, okay citation flow, but then really low trust flow. So you can check it on a couple other dimensions, and then 0 and 0. So that's part 2 of one thing to look out for. When you have a certain amount of metrics on one of the scopes here, when you select root domain, and then you select the URL and it goes to 0, 0 or no data, then that's clearly an indication that links have been built to the non-www in large quantities, which is shown there, and then no links have been built here. So it's a clear indication that the site has been spammed. So again, first thing, large difference between trust and citation flow is bad. You want to stay as close to 1-to-1 as possible. 2-to-1 is fine. When you're starting to get 3-to-1 difference, then you're starting to get into the problem zone. So that's the large difference. And then here's another example of a similar problem, but even more pronounced on the difference between a root domain and a URL. So it's looking okay from a split standpoint, weak metrics, but a 15 trust flow is nice to see. And then when you go to the URL, there's no data. So it's very unlikely that there would ever be a natural link profile that would have no backlinks built to the www, and then a reasonable number of backlinks built to the root domain. So that is something that we want to make sure that we avoid. And so that's really what we're looking for here in the root domain versus URL and the trust flow versus citation flow. And now we'll get into the great tool that is the trust versus citation flow and all the information that can share. So the first example we'll look at is identifying high concentrations of links on this graph. So what you're seeing here is really the two, what you ideally want to see is a nice curve along this line. So you want to see a nice spread of domains along here. That's what a natural profile will look like. What you're seeing here is two concentrations of links that all have the same trust versus citation flow, and then you're also seeing along the bottom here a large number of low trust, high citation flow domains, backlinks to this domain. So we're seeing both the two things that we're wanting to watch out for: concentration, lots of low trust flow links. So what we want to see is a spread of very natural looking sites linking back, and really up in this kind of along this line, which is kind of the sweet spot. Anything that's falling way below the line like this is bad, but if this was falling below the line but naturally spread out, that would be okay. So we'll look at another example. So what you're seeing here looks a little bit spread out, but then you see this high concentration. So anytime you see this high concentration, it means usually it's going to be bad. Right? We're looking at reasonable metrics, reasonable number of referring IPs, and then bad anchor text. But then when you come down and look at these links, you'll see why it is definitely a bad domain. but this concentration within the first sort of 5 seconds of looking at it, you can tell that before you have to dig into anything else, it's going to be a bad domain. So that is it for part 2 on what to look for when it comes to the anchor text, when it comes to the trust versus citation flow. Part 1 was anchor text, and then we'll get into part 3 here, looking at the actual types of links that are going to the site right now.